Good afternoon. I'm Paul, son number 2. And thanks again for being here. Shortly after 8 o'clock on the morning of June the 9th, just as I rushed into the family waiting room at the Flower Hospital emergency department, my sister told me, through her tears, he's gone. And she and my mother and I all hugged each other and cried. Now that a little time has passed, and I've had the chance for some additional contemplation, I feel the need to say something that one rarely has the opportunity to say. Anita, you're wrong. My dear sister, please let me explain. A wise man once said, "What is the life of an individual? It is, of course, the physical agglomeration of matter and energy which constitutes the body and mind. But also it is the presence of that person among others, the influence of the person in the actions and thinking of those with whom he came in contact." A poet named Unamuno used the phrase, "Until one day even we, the dead, will die completely." The wise man responsible for those lines was my father. The quotation from a Spanish poet is an obvious clue. He was speaking at the gravesite of his beloved mother after her death in 2004. He paused and then went on to say, "I believe we die twice, once when we cease to breathe, and once when no one is left alive who knew us personally. Mama is still alive, in my mind and heart, and in those of my sister and of her grandchildren. And so it is with my father. No, Anita, he is not gone. He is definitely alive in the minds and hearts of his many friends, vibrantly alive in the minds and hearts of his loving family, forever alive in the appreciative mind and grateful heart of his son, Paul. I detect him alive within me when I put on Brahms' clarinet quintet during the first big snowfall of every winter, and remember how we played it again and again when we were trapped at home during the great blizzard of 1978. When it bothers me that someone has used the word less when it should instead be fewer. When I happen to look at a mirror while at work and see a familiar sight from my childhood, a white lab coat with Dr. Fine on it, worn by a man with an ever so slightly receding hairline. When I tell my medical students and residents that there's therapeutic value in allowing hospitalized patients to sleep, and then use lines from Macbeth to prove my point. When I remember how he cried every time he heard the aria Mi chiamano Mimi from La Boheme, provided that it was sung by Mirella Freni, and from the recording that she made with Nicolai Gedda, and not the one that she made with Luciano Pavarotti. That was important. When I look up at the night sky and see the constellation Orion, and remember the day that we chose to learn, for no particular reason, that the stars that form his belt are named Alnitak, Alnilam, and Mintaka. When I go to my closet and decide which of my 50 purple ties I'll wear. Though I should mention that today's purple tie came from Dad's closet. And when everyone in my family knows that I gladly decline a 5-course meal at the fanciest restaurant and request instead some jelly beans and a good corned beef sandwich. Those are only a few examples. There are thousands more. And it's just a glimpse within one person. Suppose that I had a special device similar to the CT machines that we employ in the medical field, one that could scan the mind and the heart, as Dad phrased it, and extract an image of his influence, a visual representation of the memories he has engendered and the magnitude of his impact. If I had such a machine and scanned those of us who have gathered here today to celebrate his life, think of the colorful images that we could display, conversations in several different languages, shared vacations, restaurant lunch perspectives on the world at large, telephone calls of thoughtful concern, visits to his medical office, jokes and stories and assorted silliness, conscientious advice and guidance, sports watching, detailed and thoughtful explorations of books, politics, poetry, music, history, religion, science, philosophy, and on and on and on. That machine would demonstrate well the tremendous sphere of influence of this beautifully complex man, the number of lives he made better and richer. the number of people who learned from him something important or something unimportant. The gravitational force of his intellect and his personality, and the depth of his loyalty and compassion. If we follow my dad's reasoning, usually a good idea, and we take the liberty of extending his perspective on what it means to be alive, it might even be fair to say that our scanner would show him to be more alive after his death than some people are while still living. Ante mortem. I say ante mortem because Dad would have liked for me to sneak in just a little laugh. And to my father, if he is indeed alive here within us, I'd like to reiterate the words I wrote on the occasion of his 75th birthday. You'll remember, Dad, that after listing a large number of our favorite shared memories and experiences, I concluded as follows. These are but details, however, the dots of color on an impressionist painting viewed up close. One has to stand back to see the larger images these details create. That I owe to you so much of what I like best about myself, that I look to you as a role model for how I should serve as a father to my own children, that there is nobody whose respect means more to me, that loving you is an essential part of what I am and what I will be. It is every bit as true today. Just one reason why I must admit that even if my dad does live on within us, there's an undeniable sadness that we will no longer be able to enjoy new encounters with his many wonderful qualities. Certainly we cherish our memories, but when such remembrances are played in the mental theater, the pleasure of their recollection can be markedly attenuated or even overwhelmed by a wistful realization that the experiences they represent can never again be captured in quite the same way. In other words, there's a good reason why the word nostalgia ends with algia, a Greek root meaning pain. Since that June 9th morning, I have felt a profound sort of emptiness, an aching sense that I'm now incomplete. But I'm grateful to have had the sort of father whose absence affects me so dramatically. Grateful that he lived for almost 30 years after his heart attack, and grateful that my wife and children therefore had the opportunity to know him and to love him. And I do take some additional comfort in acknowledging how proud he would be that I have now managed to work into this address both Latin and Greek terms. And that Greek term brings to mind another favorite poem of my father's, Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson. I heard him quote the following passage many times, and I want to share it with you because I believe that it earned a special significance for him in his last years. Indeed, I believe that it expresses poignantly his own determination to continue his quest for knowledge even as he faced the inexorable effects of age. Come, my friends, 'tis not too late to seek the newer world. Push off and sitting well in order, smite the sounding furrows. For my purpose holds to sail beyond the sunset in the baths of all the western stars until I die. It may be that the gulfs will wash us down. It may be that we shall touch the happy isles and see the great Achilles, whom we knew. Though much is taken, much abides. And though we are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. To strive, to seek, to find. Much of what Dad and I found together involved music. For that reason, many of the nostalgic excursions I have taken during the past 3 weeks have involved recalling our mutual discovery, while I was still living at home, of certain favorite pieces. For example, I remember coming in from mowing the lawn one summer day and putting on Mozart's 25th piano concerto for the first time. Dad was reading a book and I was lying on the couch with my eyes closed. But when a lovely, slow passage appeared unexpectedly in the otherwise lively third movement, each of us looked over to the other immediately, with lifted eyebrows, as if to say, "Are you hearing what I'm hearing?" It was a magic moment, and a great reminder of the connection between us. I'll now conclude by telling you about one way in which we maintained and even strengthened our musical relationship in recent years. Like many children, I took piano lessons when I was a boy, and I found that I had a little facility for music composition. Dad used to call his mother in Montreal and have me play my pieces for her over the telephone. More recently, I recorded my music on the CDs, and to my great delight, my father became a devoted listener. In our last conversation, about 2 days before his death, he told me that he very much liked all of my pieces, but there was one that stood above the others, a song called Redemption, which I wrote 2 years ago and which was powerfully sung by Jeffrey Sisk. If I were to have a memorial service, he told me, I would want that to be played. And so we shall play it this afternoon for him. The song is from the perspective of a person who is deeply affected by the emotional turmoil of someone he loves and whom he wants desperately to help. It was a very different sort of composition for me, and I'm extraordinarily thankful that Dad let me know how much it spoke to him. When you hear the final chorus, you'll know that the words could have come directly from my father. If you need some relief when waves roll you about, I offer a harbor in your sea of self-doubt, a shelter whenever the rain starts to pour, a beacon of light that will guide you to shore, safe once more. A beacon of light. That was my father. That is my father.